What's up, everybody? It's Miles Turner, the Indiana Pacers. You're listening to the Paceroos Podcast. Be sure to follow at Paceroos on Twitter.
Hello, everyone, again, and welcome to the Paceroos Podcast, the only Australian NBA podcast with a bias towards the Indiana Pacers. Coming to you with a pretty somber tone this week, riding a 5-game losing streak, and nothing seems to be going right for this team. Today, we're going to talk about that 5-game losing streak, what we've seen, what we haven't liked, and, you know, we need to be honest about it. It's not all sunshine and rainbows on the show. We need to admit when we're not playing well. Not about to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say fire everyone, trade everyone at the same time, but it's important that we talk about the good and the bad. And Justin, we witnessed probably, I would say, the worst ending to a Pacers basketball game since I remember having League Pass and watching a steady diet of Pacers basketball against Toronto away just the other day, blowing that lead and not being able to survive the trap.
Yeah, I can't remember probably a worse loss in the final 2 to 3 minutes in my time watching the Pacers. I did have a think about, you know, was that the worst defeat I've probably ever watched? And I tell you what, if it wasn't the winner, it came extremely close. I was obviously watching that game live, and Toronto were paying about $121 to win that match at one point. So very extreme. Just everything went wrong. Like, I think someone tweeted the Pacers would have had to do everything wrong for the Raptors to win that, and it happened. Like, I just don't know what happened. It was kind of like high school basketball a bit, where you know, Brogdon was dribbling the ball and he did a loop pass to Sabonis at the half-court line. It could have even been a cross-court violation, and there were just turnovers and, you know, that Serge Ibaka three. As soon as he hit that, I said game. Like, Oladipo's three, I had no confidence in going in. Like, did he get pushed out of bounds or on the rebound? I don't care, because we didn't deserve that win. That was just an awful ending.
Yeah, it was pretty deplorable, as you say, and I think the team wouldn't shy away from that. Certainly, they're well aware of their inefficiencies. Listening to Nate McMillan after the latest loss, he was pretty despondent, particularly about the offensive execution. But yeah, 2 games against Toronto, and Alex, we really have showed a lack of firepower offensively compared to when we were humming along. It seems like the team's really lost a lot of the chemistry that it built over November, December, and January.
Yeah, and look, a lot of people want to pin it on just one thing. I think it's a culmination. This team, you know, it's the grind of the season, man. It's that 82-game season. You're going to go through stretches like this. Obviously, as a fan, it sucks, and I've seen some interesting takes on Twitter. I've seen some people say, cut this player, fire this player, but yeah, like you mentioned, the offense, I think that's the biggest problem for us. We've dropped down almost 10 in offensive rating this last month. So outside of maybe Justin Holiday, everyone's just been bricking. Malcolm Brogdon, you know, we talked about how much he's been great for the Pacers, but man, this last month has been an absolute struggle for him, especially coming back from that concussion. I don't know what's happened to his shot, but he doesn't look like making anything. Earlier in the year, I didn't think he was going to miss. Anytime he shot a free throw, he can't even make free throws now. He's missing at the line. Like, I don't know if it's just a rhythm thing or just, I don't know, man. It's weird. Just shots that these players I used to have confidence in them making. I just think they're not going to go in now. It's bizarre almost.
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting to see the change in terms of attacking the basket and as you say, the lack of confidence in shooting the three has been a little bit more evident over the last couple of weeks. You know, we've seen TJ Warren being out hurt. We definitely benefited from him being back in the lineup against New Orleans, but I really think it comes down to the fact that a really good amount of chemistry was built early in the season. There was a pretty significant lineup change, which the team knew was coming and clearly didn't necessarily prepare enough for, it seems. Either that or they knew that there would be a slump like this afterwards, and their expectations are better than or clearer than ours. But I think the confidence level of players in the team and their, you know, they look a little bit lost in terms of their role versus prior to Vic coming back from injury. And this is in no way Victor Oladipo's fault. It's in no way one individual player's fault or two players' faults or the coach's fault. For example, I would put the blame on squarely across the shoulders of 15 players and a coach, not any one individual or any couple of individuals. I think that's pretty foolish to say, because I don't think you can point to any player on the Pacers roster and say they are playing as well as they did when we were winning. And Justin, that's obviously evident with Malcolm Brogdon. Miles Turner's struggled, but Vic hasn't got his shot back yet. We knew that it'd take some time, but we seem to have lost the momentum that we'd built, and it's a little scary in a very tight Eastern Conference.
I think you pinpointed that very well, Adam. There's no one player or one person you can pinpoint and say, oh, they're the reason for this 5-game losing streak. It's just it's a team thing right now. And, you say we've got a 5-game losing streak. It could well have been a 6-game losing streak if Oladipo didn't hit that, near half court. 7. Well, there you go. That's how close we were to a 7-game losing streak. So, we've played a lot of teams without their big guns. Obviously, Luka Doncic was out. New Orleans were without Ingram and Zion. We've really had an easy part of the schedule with the New York Knicks, home and away against the Raptors. You would like to maybe split one of those. Definitely after the meltdown, I had higher expectations for that home game after the meltdown. I thought that was one where the Pacers should have come out firing and really been angry. They gave up that terrible loss, but they just didn't have the energy. They didn't have the fire. And with Oladipo, I hear fans, complaining about him. I'm fine with him. And I know that might actually sound silly. I'm actually impressed with him because he's come back and he's still got his quickness. I know Mark Monteith has honed in on his defensive, ability, and he's flying all over the place. He's doing really well. His shot, I don't really care about right now. He'll get that back, as we all know. But yeah, Oladipo has been fine with me. Has it cost us a game or two? Possibly, but in the long run, I think that's what we want.
It's interesting that you say that you're expecting a bounce back after that terrible loss in Toronto, because I was too. I mean, up until this 5-game losing streak, we'd only lost to maximum 3 in a row, and that was the first 3 games of the season. And we all remember the calls of fire this, trade that. Were happening a week into the season, and we laughed at those, and we were proven right with a really good run from there, and that was backed up by a record. But I don't know about you guys, but I tend to see across the team a distinct lack of confidence in their ability to get it done, which is really weird given it was completely the opposite to that just 2 weeks ago. Driving to the basket, getting blocked, not really having the confidence to hit 3-point shots. It doesn't seem like we're hitting the shots that we were even 2 weeks ago. And Alex, when you don't hit shots, you don't win games. And the offensive rating of the team, I want to call this out, January to February. In January, the offensive rating was 115, defensive rating was 113. In February, the defensive rating's gone up only by 1 to 114, but the offensive rating's gone from 115 to 107 with roughly the same pace. So when you look at, the loss of 8 points in offensive rating, that's significant. That's, that's a major downturn in offensive ability. And I don't really know where this is coming from.
Yeah, that's eye-opening, but I think I want to bring up Victor Oladipo's quote after that Raptors loss. I know we don't want to talk about that game much, but I thought it was a great quote. He said that it looked like the Raptors knew exactly what they wanted to run, exactly when they wanted to run it, exactly where everyone needed to be. But then on the Pacers side, no one knew what they were doing. No one knew what they were running. This is a completely new team with Oladipo in it. So you got to look at it from the point. I think it was Arus who's a big fan of the show, and we love him on Pacers Twitter, but he brought it up. This is almost like Pacers preseason again. This is a brand new team. I know I'm not trying to make excuses. That was a bad loss, but at the end of the day, when you have to integrate a player like Victor Oladipo into the lineup and you're taking 15 shots away from other players, that's going to be huge. So I think part of that offensive rating going down is because of Oladipo. And obviously his shooting numbers have slumped, but yeah, I think the lack of confidence is maybe more so of a lack of understanding of where everyone wants to be on the floor and, who wants to take what shots. So I'm not too worried about it right now. In terms of the long run, I think they'll get it together. But you know who has no problem with confidence? Do you know who has no problem with confidence? It's Lance. Come on, man. Born ready. You have to. He was at the game. I know everyone saw it. He was at yesterday's Pacers game. How good would it be? Just even like I said to you guys, even if he played 2 or 3 minutes a game or just sat on the bench, how good would he be for this team's confidence? You would not have them coming out with the lackluster energy they've had the last few games.
Just sitting on the bench playing guitar before and after timeouts. It'd be something epic. I think there's a really special place in the hearts of all Pacers fans for Lance Stephenson. He was a key to our success in a really successful 2-year span when we made the Eastern Conference Finals against Miami and, getting triple doubles, led the league in triple doubles. But overall, just the grit, the toughness, the confidence. We talked about the lack of confidence and the loss of confidence recently. There's no more confident player just about in Pacers history. He's the definition of the irrational confidence guy. And right now, this team has I guess assumed the identity of its best player, and that is Victor Oladipo, and he is a positive individual. He's happy-go-lucky, but that swagger is going to take some time to get back. That confidence level is going to take some time to get back. He showed flashes of that in that game-winning shot against, or the overtime forcing shot against Chicago. But I really think that there needs to be some sort of injection of confidence or swagger, or some presence around the team has to change slightly. Not necessarily a change in a roster spot, and even though I would love for Lance to be on this team, and I would almost certainly go out and buy a Lance jersey immediately, but Justin, it seems like the team is lacking that air of confidence that it had, and that air of we can beat anyone on any given night. That's really eroded, which is worrying.
Yeah, that's gone. You've pinpointed it again, I suppose. And again, I want to touch on Lance Stephenson. I know most likely he won't be a member of the Pacers this year, but Eli Ratliff actually tweeted the Pacers something, and it was actually a good pickup that we interviewed Mark Boyle a few weeks or months ago, and he said, Pacers don't do tribute videos. They never have. I've never seen one in my time. Maybe Reggie Miller got one at his first TNT broadcast game when he was in the field house, but Pacers actually did one for Lance Stephenson, which is groundbreaking for that franchise to do. Like, I was surprised they did it, and obviously the fans loved it. We all know, Lance calls Indiana his home, and he's beloved by the fans. We all probably know he's actually one player that 99.9% of the fan base absolutely love. Like, we love him. And, it was interesting. Alex, you mentioned, he said he basically cried coming back to the arena. So, it was just very interesting. They did a tribute video of him, and I was all for it. I loved it. Just wanted to shout that out there. But yeah, I think with the energy, and they don't have confidence. I'm not confident they're going to win any game. They could play anyone tomorrow, even if it was at Cavs or at Atlanta. And as a fan, I wouldn't be confident they're going to go in there and win. So, look, I think this team, they need the All-Star break.
Desperately.
Desperately. So they're 2 games away from that. And I know there's probably 2 sides to look at it. They need to play as much as possible and be healthy. But I think this team just needs a break. I think that 4 or 6 or 7 day break has come at the perfect time for Indiana, and you can see it. The teams after the All-Star break, it's the business season. We mentioned that 2 weeks ago, that the elite teams step up after All-Star break. So Indiana, all right, it's your time to get your week's rest, and then let's see what you're made of.
And really, I mean, I don't know how difficult it is. It must be so difficult to get time with Victor Oladipo while you're, going through the rigors of an NBA schedule. Like, you're practicing 4 games. You're practicing to be able to come out and play Cleveland or play Detroit or play Brooklyn or whoever it is. It must be really difficult to devote significant time in a practice to a player that's injured at the time and will eventually come back. So the fact that, they probably haven't had anywhere near enough time to build that chemistry with Vic, and he was, running with the Mad Ants and running with the second unit or running with the third unit in some cases. I think it's we knew it was going to take time. We said last episode, we called it preaching patience, and I think it's very, very understandable that people's patience would be eroding after 5 losses in a row. That's absolutely, any fan base would be pretty livid with 5 losses in a row. But at this point, I think you also have to consider and remember the fact that we still haven't had consistency in our lineup throughout this whole process. I mean, TJ Warren just came back last game after having, 2 or 3 games off and going off halfway through that Dallas game, or 3/4 of the way through. So, Alex, we need the consistency of this lineup to play 3, 4, 5, 6 games in a row to really allow it to gel. I mean, it took 4 games for the team to actually gel at the start of the season, didn't it?
I think that's actually something that people are missing here. I think it's so unfair to, obviously we can judge what we see, and that's our job, but I think it's unfair to judge this team fully. I've seen people say we're, bounced in the first round automatically, there's no chance we're winning a series, but this team has played 3 quarters with no one on the injury list. This team has played 3 quarters where they've had their full team available, and even then I would argue that wasn't even the case because, Oladipo was playing 20 minutes on minute restriction. So I think, like Justin mentioned, after the All-Star break is going to be where I can really see, or where we can all really see what this team's made of. That's hopefully when, fingers crossed, everyone's going to be healthy. It just seems like every time one player comes back, another player's on the injury list, and that's been the story of this Pacers season. So, I mean, for me, hopefully it's just getting consistency, man. After the All-Star break, I just pray that this team can just get like a month where everyone's available. That would be my absolute dream. And then hopefully towards the end of the season, Oladipo comes back and is off that minutes restriction.
Definitely. I think we're going to have to look to some players that probably haven't contributed as much. And I think Nate's going to go to his bench a little more often. I mean, Goga's been a typical rookie, let's be fair. He hasn't set the world on fire. At times he's looked completely lost. But I want to talk about a guy that we haven't had a chance to talk about in a little while that got some burn in the second half against New Orleans. Justin, you'll enjoy this topic, but Edmund Sumner got some minutes in the second half, and Nate said he wanted a different look in the post-game. I watched his press conference, and he mentioned that he liked what he saw out of Edmund Sumner. And, we saw Sumner have a really important start to the season in the face of some injuries and emerge as an interesting role player option for Nate in the first couple of weeks of the season before getting injured. So do you think it's time to try something different and try to bring some energy with Edmund Sumner off the bench?
Yeah, I like the call. I like Edmund Sumner and Spurts. You two know I'm a massive fan of him. I know it's hard to get him minutes with the team we've got and kind of how deep we are, but I'm pretty sure Nate McMillan benched Aaron Holiday after he got a tech foul. I think he was kind of sending a statement there. So that may have just been a one-game thing. Not sure if Sumner's going to get any minutes against Brooklyn the next game. But, when you're in a rut like this, you got to try anything. You got to try a real, spark plug. TJ McConnell would probably extended minutes in the fourth quarter to really push the pace. But, yeah, it's just, there's a lot of teams in a rut. I hear a lot of 76ers fans wanting Brett Brown fired. There's, other teams in the Western Conference. Everyone's got their own issues. So Pacers aren't the only team in the NBA struggling. I think we have to remember that. There are a lot of good teams who have gone through struggles this year. And, those fans are calling for their head coach's head as well. So, obviously, it's not just Pacer fans, but I think we will weather the storm. I'm not too concerned. I will admit after the Pacers were 0-3, I was concerned. Not to the extent of firing anyone or trading anyone at that time, but it was concerning. To me, I'm not too concerned right now. I think if 2 weeks after the All-Star break, the Pacers are still playing like this and maybe have lost 10 of their last 11, that's when I'll start getting concerned. But right now, I think we're just in a little rut.
The most important thing over the next 2 games and then post-All-Star break is that starting lineup get as many minutes as they can handle together to gel, to understand where they need to be in situations. And I also think it is a real challenge to Nate McMillan to not change the way the offense operates, but redefine it a little bit and get the players in positions to succeed. Maybe change up, the way that they run things. I'd like to see a bit. I'd like to see that confidence return, and maybe there needs to be a change in structure, or a change in scheme, or something of that effect with Vic. But I don't necessarily think there's been an air of confidence around the team, as we've said. So something's got to give, and it has to be on the offensive end, because defensively we've kind of maintained the same level of effort. So, it's one thing to say that shots need to go down, but Alex, it's also about how you get those shots and where those shots come from. And, we need a lot more movement. We need some passing, and we need to hit the open man and make the easy shot. I mean, it's not rocket science. Teams have been doing it for many years, and we just haven't seen that from the Pacers over the last 5 games, have we?
Yeah, I was just about to say the past week and a half has been very reminiscent of early stages last year without Oladipo, where it was almost we could go 5 or 6 minute stretches where it would just be ISO ball. Collison would dribble out the clock for about 20 seconds. And, we love McConnell on the show. I'm one of his biggest fans, but sometimes there'll be possessions where he just dribbles it for, 22, 23 seconds, and then we're forcing up a shot at the end. So, he's not the only player. Lamb does that a little bit as well. So I think it's just about, we have so many talented guys on this team. So I think this is one of the most offensively talented groups the Pacers have, I would argue, have ever had. And you've got to do a better job moving the ball. You saw that Raptors game, the bench unit went on some absolutely absurd run. The biggest thing for that run was players were just moving the ball. It was started with great defense, and then, Aaron Holiday was making passes, McConnell was throwing dimes, Sabonis, when he starts moving the ball, the last couple games he's averaged 5 turnovers a game. So just uncharacteristic things this past week. Oladipo, Brogdon turning it over, just things I think come with the wear and tear of the season. And oh man, I struggle to believe that will continue. I really do. I think this team's going to be just fine. I think that at the end of the day, an area we haven't talked about yet on this show is, for me, perimeter defense. Yeah. Every team that comes into Bankers Live seems to shoot about 80% from 3 and just doesn't miss. So I think perimeter defense is something that they definitely have to address.
We've been susceptible to high volume shooting guards over the last 5 or 6 seasons, and it's really continued this year with Damian Lillard, who we'll talk about in a minute with that goaltending call. But we can't seem to stop those high volume scoring guards, which is ironic given we're supposed to on paper have one of the best, if not the best, perimeter defensive guard tandems in Brogdon and Oladipo in the league. So I'm interested to see that step up, and I'd love to see us be able to get some scalps defensively for some All-Stars. It starts with Brooklyn. They've got a couple of guys that can go off if given the opportunity. So love to see a good defensive performance there. But we've had Brooklyn's number this season so far. So I think Brooklyn will be hungry for a victory, but at the same time, hopefully we take the confidence that we took out of that very early victory in Brooklyn, and then the second game in Brooklyn where Aaron Holiday had, I think, a career night and started earlier in the season. So I'll be looking forward to seeing that game and confident that we can make it 3 from 3 against the Nets. We'll move on because we've taken up quite a lot of time talking about a 5-game losing streak, which we never love to do. But just around the league, want to get your thoughts on the Lillard Gobert goaltending call and subsequent line from the NBA officials where they did confirm that the call should have been made. I think every man and his dog knew that call should have been made the minute the replay showed up. But Justin, you were particularly hot on it on Twitter, and why these calls aren't reviewable is just lost on me.
Facts. It makes no sense whatsoever. They bring in the coach's challenge, which I believe has been fantastic, and then it's a clear goaltend. I'm shocked that not one of the 3 referees saw it, or even I know it's not reviewable per league rules, but you got Lillard going absolutely crazy. Like, how's that not a rule to go, all right, let's stop the game, let's just quickly check if that hit the glass first? Obviously, as Pacer fans, it all brought up bad memories of Oladipo and LeBron in the playoffs, which cost us the series, let's all admit it. But yeah, it's crazy. And a little subplot which I thought was extremely funny, right, was the NBA actually not finding Lillard for his comments.
Really?
Yeah, he dropped an F-bomb. He said, the league's BS and went off, which is understandable.
Fair enough.
Everyone and their dog knows that it was the wrong call. But for them actually not to fine him sets a precedent, I think, now for other players where why can't they go off in the locker room? Why can't they swear if the call was wrong? Because now you've said, hey, Damian Lillard doesn't get fined. So, I just thought that was a funny subplot. But what a terrible call, and I feel very bad for Portland. I've enjoyed watching them so much lately. We all know how much I love Dame Dollar. He's been on a tear. If you haven't watched any Portland games, Pacer fans, I would tune into that West Coast time slot because he's pulling up from the logo. He's on MVP pace. And it's cost them a massive game in the Western Conference playoff race.
Yeah, pretty significant call. Alex, I can't for the life of me understand why any of those refs didn't call goaltending. And it was great to see Dame show some emotion. It was great to see Donovan Mitchell go back at him, though. Like, I like a rivalry, especially with two teams that could play each other in the playoffs. It makes it more exciting. We saw TJ Warren and Jimmy Butler earlier in the season that could meet in the playoffs as well. How good are NBA rivalries?
I mean, I'm sure they're not as good as they were back in the 90s, but yeah, it's good to get some fire in these guys. I think sometimes, I'm a younger fan, but maybe for you, Adam, your older fans probably miss that intensity in these guys. So yeah, I love it. I would love to see Damian Lillard make the playoffs. I know I love the Grizzlies. I'm a big Ja Morant fan, but I'm not going to lie. I'd rather see the Trailblazers go up against the Lakers in the playoffs than a young Grizzlies team get swept. But yeah, man, that kills. I mean, people were saying, oh, it's not the first goaltender to get missed, but man, you got to understand these guys are trying to make the playoffs. They're like a few games out, and what if they miss the playoffs by one game? I mean, that is.
You know what I love,
killer.
Guys, is people shorten the season. The NBA is too long. The players don't care about regular season. Yeah, ask that to Damian Lillard after that game if he cared.
Exactly.
That guy put his blood, sweat, and tears into that game. He nearly dropped 50 points or 48.
Seven players.
Seven players.
Unbelievable.
Played his ass off, and then you've got fans going, NBA players don't care about regular season. Ask Damian Lillard if he cares.
Exactly. Yeah.
Look, I want to get a bit stats nerd for a second because I don't know how this is possible, but I think the reigning MVP of the league hasn't actually got enough credit this season. I think Giannis Antetokounmpo is putting up not just historic numbers, but numbers that we may never have seen before. Like if you take pace out of it, he's not playing many minutes, so we'll just go per 100 possessions, and I want to compare two seasons for you. So per 100 possessions, Giannis is currently averaging 44.3 points per game, 19.9 rebounds, 8.6 assists, 1.6 steals, 1.6 blocks, 5 turnovers. Okay. So in the most dominant player I've seen in my lifetime in a single season was Shaquille O'Neal across the three-peat Lakers. It was a guaranteed 2 points when you threw the ball to Shaq. He terrorized opposing centers to the point where they couldn't do anything, and he got officiated in such a way that it was quite ridiculous. So in Shaq's best season in 99-2000, when he won the MVP, I believe, for the first time, he put up per 100 possessions 38 points, 17 rebounds, 5 assists, and 4 blocks. Giannis is putting up 14, nearly 20 rebounds and 8 assists. I've never seen anything like what we're seeing from Giannis. It's quite unbelievable. I think he has the opportunity this season, if he continues on the pace that he's going on, to put up something that resembles top 5 statistical seasons in NBA history, which when you talk about Russ averaging a triple-double, when you talk about James Harden averaging 38 points, I don't care about any of that. Giannis is putting up numbers that resemble. We talked about it when we did our tribute episode to Kobe in that run where he scored 81. It was like a video game. These are numbers that you put up on My Career on easy. Like these are unbelievable historic numbers, and I don't think Giannis gets enough credit. I hope he stays in Milwaukee for his whole career, even though he plays in our division, because I think it sends an amazing message to small market teams. And I'm just so impressed with this guy and so impressed with the fact that he's been able to get better. Even after putting up 30, 13 and 6 last year, he's now putting up 35, 16 and 6.
That Bucks team in general just doesn't get enough credit. They're 45 and 17. Oh, 45 and 7. They could legitimately have a 70-plus win season, and no one will talk about it. That's
all
insane.
this talk about the Lakers and the Clippers and who's the best team in the league. The best team in the league plays in the East right now, and it's not even close. It's not even remotely close. I think there's a tendency to discredit teams in the East because they don't have LeBron or they don't play in the West in what's perceived to be a better conference. I think, people are lumping this year's Bucks team in with that Hawks team that won 60 wins a few years ago. But it is ridiculous to even consider that they are not the best team in the league, and they're the best team in the league by a significant margin. Justin, is anyone stopping this team?
It's going to be interesting come the playoffs. I'll probably now think not in the Eastern Conference. I think Milwaukee will be the team to go into the NBA Finals, although, don't discredit the Toronto Raptors. I know they don't have star power, but what have they won 14 in a row? So they can't be discredited either. But you mentioned Giannis, Adam. I couldn't agree more. I think you reach elite level in any sport, right, when I guess you don't get talked about that much when you're putting up incredible numbers. And that's what Giannis is doing. No one's really talking about him because people expect this from him on a nightly basis. And that's when you've made it in the league as a genuine superstar. So it's going to be very interesting. I actually was thinking this morning, I can't wait for the NBA playoffs to start. And we've spoken about it together, and hopefully maybe Pacers can get that 6 seed now. I've maybe given up hope about getting home court and a top 4 seed. Probably not good enough with all the interchangeables of the season. And what that 6 seed would look like would hopefully be we cause an upset with the 3rd seed, which maybe would be the Miami or Boston, and then you would essentially not have to play Milwaukee in round 2. So I think that's
no one wants to see Milwaukee in round 2. No one.
No. Because let's be honest, the Pacers would find that extremely difficult, that challenge. Yeah. So I think being a 6 seed, I know we're looking far down the line here, but that might be the best course of action for Pacers to maybe reach the Eastern Conference Finals. What do you guys think?
The scariest thing for me is that Giannis is playing 31 minutes a game. So he is being rested throughout this season for a team that's lost 7 games nearly at the All-Star break. It's, just the fact that they've been able to conserve his energy, because playing in an 100-game playoff season or 110-game playoff season when you go deep, energy is so important. And we saw that in his first major season last year, he, had about 33, 34 minutes a game, and he flamed out in the Eastern Conference Finals against a really good Toronto team. But, the fact that he's been able to conserve his energy, the fact that they've been able to win so many games and set themselves up for a 1 seed and probably clinch that by mid-March, I don't think it'll get enough respect until they win a ring. And I think they're in the box seat right now. And if I had to put money down, I'd put it on the Bucks. Alex, are they going to win it all?
I think the Pacers are going to win it all, mate.
Good answer.
But I would love to see, I'd love to see the Bucks go up against the Lakers or even the Clippers. If he could get revenge against Kawhi Leonard. I know, like you mentioned, he pretty much shut him down. Him and Gasol and Serge Ibaka had his number last season in the playoffs, so I think another year under his belt, and man, it just looks like no one can stop him, man. Like you mentioned, he's a video game character, honestly. He just be Euro stepping from about the 3-point line and just jams it. It's fun to watch when you're not playing against him. But man, like Justin mentioned, these playoffs can't come soon enough. I would love to. Well, I just want to bring up before we finish. I just want to say I've seen some talk around. I know as you mentioned, the 6 seed is probably where we're going to get, but who would you guys like to see in the first round of the playoffs?
Miami.
Miami? Yeah, I would have to say, man, either I want to avoid Philly and Milwaukee at all costs. That's all I'll say.
Yeah,
Miami for me.
I got to say Miami as well. Although I think they've done terrific, and they probably had got better for the playoffs around the trade deadline, getting Iguodala. I know his contract was ridiculous, but he's going to provide, that playoff experience. I think, Boston's got too much star power for us. Philly, if Embiid's healthy, I mean, they've been struggling. But, I think Miami would give us the best chance of going into the second round.
Yeah,
and we all want to see Jimmy Butler versus TJ Warren, don't we?
Definitely.
Yeah.
With a fully healthy team and a healthy Victor Oladipo, we want to see that Miami series. I think beating Miami means a lot to Pacers fans, so the ability to be able to potentially do that this season.
We have to beat them in a series. We have to.
We have to. Yeah. It'll absolve a lot of demons from yesteryear for Pacers fans. That's for sure. But it's going to be an interesting couple of games heading up to the All-Star break. We'll be with you just prior to the All-Star break with a mid-season wrap up. And we're hoping to go into the All-Star break with a little bit of momentum so the players can have a rest aside from Domas, who's got a few things to do. But we wish him all the best in the All-Star break as it comes up. Guys, very quickly, predictions for the Brooklyn game. Do you think this losing streak will continue, or do you think we'll bounce back in this game coming up?
It's we hope so. I think we'll win, but to be honest, I thought the Pelicans game would be the bounce back one. So I'm not sure. Does anyone know if Kyrie's playing? Not sure. He's been out the last few games, so that's going to be a big swing if he plays. It might be a 50-50 game, but if he's out, then there's no way with Kyrie out. Obviously, KD's out, but there's no way we should not win that game at home. And I want to see some fire. I want to see some energy from the first quarter. It's that's what fans want to see. Come out pissed off, play hard.
Yeah, we want to see that it really matters to the team. We want to see a big effort and a statement win is really what we need. Alex, do you see us beating Brooklyn tomorrow?
I'm going to be super optimistic here, and I'm saying we're going 2-0 in the All-Star break. We're going 2-0 into the All-Star break. I'm calling it right
the Bucks.
Now. Yep, I'm calling it.
Wow.
You can roast me. You can roast me when we get beaten by 20 by Milwaukee, but I'm going to stand by my comments here.
No, I love it. We've just spent 5 minutes talking out the Bucks, and to beat them would be just the biggest win of the season, and that's the sort of victory that can spur us through the All-Star break and set us up for a really huge run heading into the second sort of half of the season, although we're slightly over halfway. But yeah, a win against the Bucks would be epic, and we'd be pretty excited bringing you the episode directly after that. We'd probably have to record 5 minutes after the end of the game, I'd say.
If there's one game you want to play the best team in the league, it's the game before the All-Star break.
That's true, yeah. That's true.
That is the one where you can catch him. Giannis might have his held elsewhere, so you never know.
Fingers crossed. All right, guys. Well, it's been a fun episode. We've been discussing a losing streak, which is never fun, but glad you could be with us on the Paceroos podcast, and we'll speak to you next time.